the real interest rate. First thing I want you to notice is the y-axis of this diagram is the real interest rate. But when the government is telling us how much tax we need to pay, they apply the tax to the nominal interest rate. Okay, so the graph's the real interest rate, but you and I pay tax on the nominal interest rate. Nominal interest rate is what you actually receive, and the real interest rate is the nominal minus the inflation rate. So let's suppose we have an example, and we're going to say the real interest rate is 3%. And let's say, I mean, that's an amazing interest rate to get in Canada right now, but it's sort of in the realm of possibilities. And let's say that, as is actually the case, the inflation rate is 2%. So this is kind of realistic. And let's suppose that the government puts a tax on our investments so that the tax rate is 25%. Also realistic. So first of all, how much tax do I have to pay? Well, I have to find the nominal interest rate first of all. So the nominal interest rate is equal to the real interest rate plus the inflation rate. So that's going to be equal to 3% plus 2%, which is 5%. So now I need to pay income tax on that 5%. So how much tax am I paying? So tax is going to be 25% of 5%, which is 0.25 times 5%, which is 1.25%. Okay. So now that means that from a nominal interest rate of 5% that I was earning, I have to pay 1.25% as tax. So my after-tax nominal rate is going to be 5% minus 1.25%, which is 3.75%. So then my after-tax real interest rate is going to be the nominal minus the inflation rate, which is 1.75%. Okay, agree with me so far? So what is the actual interest rate that I'm paying? Well, I was making 3%. After tax, I'm only making 1.75%. So tax-wise, I'm paying 1.25% of 3%. So my real tax rate is the amount of tax, 1.25%, divided by the amount I was making, times 100. So my real tax rate is actually 41.6%. And I will go through that with you. Once you've got that all written down, just talk it through. Okay, here we go. I'm making 3% on my investment, the inflation rate is 2%, and the tax rate, according to the government, is 25%. Government is going to tax nominal interest. Nominal interest is the sum of real interest plus inflation. 3 plus 2 is 5. The tax rate is 25% of 5%. 25% of 5% is 1.25%. My after-tax nominal rate is the 5% I was making minus the 1.25 I'm paying as tax. So my after-tax nominal rate is 3.75%. My after-tax real interest rate is the 3.75 I'm making here minus the inflation rate is 1.75%. So my real tax rate then is the amount that I'm paying in tax. This is what I'm keeping, 1.75. So the amount I'm paying in tax is 1.25 because 1.25 plus 1.75 is 3. So my real tax rate is 1.25 divided by 3 times 100. Actually, although the government says I'm paying 25% tax, I'm actually paying 41.6% tax. So when the government is taxing our investments, tax rate is even higher than it looks, which means there's going to be an even greater decrease in investment. Now let's have a look and see what happens when we have a higher inflation rate. So let's do this again. Actually, I'll write it on it here. So again, we're going to have a real interest rate of 3%. An inflation rate of 2%, or sorry, we're going to have a higher inflation rate. We're going to have 8% inflation. So it sounds horrible now, but this is what we lived with like 20 years ago. And we're still going to have a tax rate of 25%. So I want you to do this now. First of all, I want you to calculate the nominal interest rate. And what's the nominal interest rate? Somebody tell me. Who just talked? Yes? Yep. The nominal interest rate is 11%. Why? Because it's the sum of the real interest rate and the inflation rate. So now the tax is going to be 25% of 11%. So 0.25 times 11, tell me what you get. I'm sorry? 3.75? 2.75, yeah. So now my tax is 2.75. So my after-tax nominal interest rate is going to be 11% minus 2.75%, which is 8.25%. Okay. Now what's my real after-tax interest rate? My real after-tax interest rate is my after-tax nominal interest rate minus my inflation rate, which is a whopping 0.25%. So my real tax rate is, so I was making 3%, and my after-tax return is 0.25. That means the amount of real tax I'm paying is 2.75% divided by 3 times 100. My actual tax rate is, I get that to be 92%. Does somebody check that one? Yeah. So when the inflation rate rises, then this tax becomes very large. That's why a tax on investment income is often referred to as an inflation tax. The higher the inflation, the more we're going to be paying in tax. And that's one of the major reasons why Bank of Canada is targeting the inflation rate to keep it low. Because when inflation is high and we have to pay this huge tax on investment, what's going to happen is we're not going to invest as much. And we've learned that we don't invest in much, then what happens, economic growth slows right down. So this is kind of cool. This is just bringing together everything that we've already learned. Anybody have any questions on that? Okay, well, have a look at the next page. The next page shows a diagram that is